Hey guys. This is part 12 of What If Shikamaru was the main character. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start. Chapter 56. This song was sung before. The dimension of the dog summons. Kushina was dead. She knew this. Minato was dead. She knew this also. The three-headed hellhound before them was proof enough of that. Naruto was alive, and that was all that mattered to her. Her beautiful, precious, wonderful boy. She was so proud of him. She loved him so much she thought her heart might burst. Naruto turned, and caught sight of them. You guys are my parents, he said. That's us, she said. You know, I'd normally question how this is possible, but at this point I don't even care. I've seen weirder shit than dead people talking. His face was completely blank, neutral, level. And it hurt Kushina to see him so guarded and reserved before them. To see a young man with so much heart, so much natural expression, feel like he had to hide himself before them. I'm sorry, Minato suddenly blurted. For burdening you with the QB, there was a growl. It was then that she noticed the fox's presence, angry and menacing, and yet the most calm and least malicious she had ever seen it be. I'm sorry, Minato said softly. For leaving you. For your awful childhood. For saying sorry when it doesn't mean or change anything. Naruto cocked his head to the side and narrowed his eyes. Okay, I get the first two, but seriously? You're apologizing for apologizing? Kushina swallowed. Then she burst out laughing, because that was such a Minato thing to do. Minato looked like he choked on a lime. What's so funny? He demanded, which only made Kushina laugh harder. He looked around, and turned bright red. It's the seal, isn't it? You're laughing at my horrible craftsmanship. Oh my god, it's so embarrassing. I always told you, I'm a math guy. All this Yuzushiogakure Sofu and Jutsu stuff is way out of my league. Stick to your strengths, Minato, I always used to tell myself. Don't mess around with the things you're bad at. We were supposed to meet him separately, and the yin and yang parts of the fox were supposed to be in different compartments, and he wasn't supposed to see us until he got his ninth tail. And oh my god, it looks like a third grader with crayons and tape made it, and I don't even, whatever. Kushina doubled over, wheezing. Can you believe this nerd? What? Minato cut his tirade short in an indignant splutter. Woman, you married this nerd. I'd like to see you design a better bijou containment matrix under pressure. Naruto, tell him he's a total nerd. Don't believe your mother. She's lying. She was always pulling pranks in the academy, Minato pleaded. I'm not a nerd, listen to your father. Naruto chewed his lip as he considered this. You're not a total nerd, he finally said. Ha! See? Minato crowed triumphantly. You're a total dork. Minato dropped to his knees in despair. Kushina and Naruto high-fived over his prostrate body. You two are so mean, he wailed. I'll never recover from this. Kushina ruffled his hair. Love you too, honey. She turned to Naruto. And you as well. Naruto was laughing, but his shoulders were also shaking. Kushina took him in her arms and rubbed his back, while also sparing a moment, when her son's face was buried in her shoulder, and her husband's face was buried in the ground, to flip off the QB, who had been pulling disgusted faces at their sickeningly sweet familial display. As amusing as it is to see the great yellow flash of Konoha in such a state, the hellhound interrupted. We would like to reassure you that the QB seal remains intact. The dead and the living speak only at our discretion. Minato, blinking, half-spluttered how? Rolling his eyes, the hound answered, and publicly reveal infinite avenues of possible abuse? We think not. Of all the summons in existence, we were chosen by the Shinigami to be his gatekeeper. Not the snakes, not the frogs, not the slugs, but us. We did not come this far to lose everything because some idiot human was foolish enough to offend death. Whatever secrets we reveal will be to only Naruto, and only when we deem him ready. Offend death? Naruto asked. You do realize that the Shinigami could have put a stop to Edo Tensei, corpse reanimation, and the Rinnegan whenever he wanted to, if he wanted to, right? He didn't, because he doesn't punish innocent people who die normally. So these special snowflakes who think they're smart enough to cheat death are literally his only source of entertainment. The deeper they dig themselves, the more fun he gets to have with them when they finally die, and thus the more incentive he has to just let it happen. So, the night aim, Minato paled. Before you try to explain that he wasn't trying to revive dead people, only temporarily bring them back so he could listen to their wisdom, the Shinigami doesn't give a damn, the hellhound interrupted. You of all people should know what an ass he is. He's the friggin' Shinigami. You think he needs the extra power of a soul sacrifice to seal a bijou? He was bored, he needed justification, and you gave him the perfect excuse. He is an eternity old. He stopped caring about all of you after the first 10 generations. What? Truth be told, Minato Namikaze, you were lucky. All he did was eat you. Considering what he could have done, a stomach prison where nothing ever happens isn't bad at all. And Naruto here won't even have to worry about any of that. We are obligated by contract to care about our summoners at least 0.00000000444 iotas more than every other human being, the Hellhound said, as if that was supposed to be reassuring. Turning to her son, it continued, Naruto, if you ever consider doing something stupid, we will quickly bite your head off before you can, so the Shinigami will have no choice but to put you with the rest of the people who died normally. What the hell? Kushina snapped. You can't just threaten us for being mortal. Listen, lady, it's not a threat if the alternative is much worse, and 2, you're already dead, so I don't see what's so bad about such an arrangement. Mom, it's fine. Naruto stepped in front of her when she tried to charge the dog. Look, I promise I'll be reasonable. The 3 heads snorted. It would be embarrassing if you weren't. Even Kakashi was self-aware enough to not damn himself for all eternity. He might be a madman, but at least he knows exactly how mad he is. Is that why you two never? Naruto trailed off. Best not to accept a power that he knew he'd never be able to use responsibly. Trapping himself here talking to dead loved ones forever was the least of it. More than we can say for some other of our summoners. You, on the other hand, are sane enough that you might make some use of our powers after all. But enough of that. We have all the time in the world to discuss the mechanics of our work. You wish to learn how to persuade the Achibi to stand down, and we are gifting you that opportunity. We would not have allowed you to contact the souls of your parents otherwise. Speaking of which, you have 10 minutes. Hurry up. Oh, said Naruto, turning back to face them. Hi. Again. Hi, Kushina whispered. Mom? Dad? Naruto asked timidly, and it broke her heart. Mom, Dad, it's horrible out there. I'm supposed to lead this mission, and I don't know what to do. We just killed 2 S-rank Nin and another thing that I'm not even sure is human. And meanwhile there's a kid who's just like me, only he can't control himself. Minato took his hand. Naruto. Yeah? I don't know how to start this, Minato confessed. But when I was alive, I always tried my best to act nice. To be nice. I wanted every bit to be a good person. I wanted to go to heaven when I died. I still tried to convince myself that it was possible, even after the battle that won me my nickname, where I single-handedly murdered thousands of IWA Nin with one technique, even after I used the outcome of that battle to further my own fame and reputation and political power. Now that I'm dead, I've had time to think, and I've decided that letting you, at least, know the truth is better. The world is cruel, as I'm sure you already know. Sometimes, the only deterrence to cruelty is repaying it in kind. Yet other times, being kind is the solution to cruelty. True power is knowing when to use which, to be loved and feared in equal measure, for you will never be strong if you have undisciplined loyalty, while discipline without any loyalty is asking to get betrayed the moment you are weak. Minato straightened up. I love you, Naruto. With every bit of my being, Kushina chuckled. I'd move the sun and the moon and all the oceans in the world for you, Naruto. Never forget that. Naruto was sobbing in earnest now. Thank you, he sobbed. Thank you for saying it. Out loud. I needed to hear that. Every day, since I was small enough to know what I was missing minus I love you, Mom. Dad, as many times as you need to hear it. As many times as your soul needs to become stronger, Kushina promised. Now, I believe there is someone else who needs your help. Your earlier question, Minato minus the seal, was meant to open when it faced a certain influx of power, right? Right. You designed it to trigger when that influx was equal to the power of all the Kyuubi's 9 tails. But, she grinned, there is another case that would require the same amount of energy. Energy out equals energy in, he whispered to himself. To release a bijou, or to seal one back away. Of course. He slapped himself in the face. Naruto chuckled and turned to leave. So, kindness? She took his hands in her own and began channeling her chakra through them. Kindness. All an empty soul needs is the grasp of a full heart, and you, my beautiful, amazing, wonderful son, have that in spades, Black Zetsu. So this was it then. My observation skills. My strategic ability. Gone. And of all the spare chakra Naruto had, I could use absolutely zero, unless I wanted the incompatibilities to blow up and kill us all. Fuck damn it. Pull yourself together. You are on a mission. Why the hell are you afraid? You won against Itachi, you beat him. You have no reason to fear something as stupid and mundane as water. You were supposed to have already gotten over this. What is wrong with you? But I was not looking back. I was in the present. When one is caught in the heat of the moment, one does not have the luxury of 20/20th hindsight. And God's damn it, but I despised myself so much for my weakness, my total lack of control, not only over my own body, but over my own brain. I was scared out of my fucking mind. I'd been in a lot of situations where I really did think I was going to die before. But all of those situations were before I had the chance to try anything, so they usually resolved themselves once I took action. However, this was after I'd already exhausted all my options. We're done for. We're all going to die. I despised myself, my own mind, for the uncontrolled desperation and despair. I wished I could be separate from all this. Which was, obviously, very counterintuitive, because I was making these very thoughts about separating myself from my brain, with my brain. When I normally thought of myself, I pictured my own physical appearance, as any regular person did, but in reality, my mind was me, my body only an extension of it. My brain was a self-aware piece of meat projecting itself onto a shell of bone and skin. So wanting myself and my brain to be separate entities was impossible and counterintuitive. And I know I'm not making sense, but that's what happens when your brain, and also your brain, are split. Yes, that makes even less sense. I'm sorry, I couldn't see. I couldn't feel. I couldn't think. It was an all-consuming exhaustion that completely distorted every thought in my head except for, close your eyes, nap, tired, sleep. I blacked out minus, do not. You sleep here and you die, minus I jerked myself awake. Panic. I couldn't see. I couldn't see. I couldn't see, wait, no, I could see. It was just, everything was inverted, like the inside of the Tsukuyumi. And my head was strangely, full. Flooded, with too much perception, everywhere, and I thought that this must have been what Ino felt like when she tried to communicate Kakashi-sensei's sealing instructions to me back in Wave. Or perhaps I was a Hyuga activating the Byakugan for the first time, or a fly experiencing the world through compound eyes. And suddenly I felt old and shriveled, the way the last survivor of a plague looks at himself and says, oh, this must be what a 1,000-year-old tree feels like when it finally dies at last. Because in front of me was myself. I was staring at myself. Black Zetsu's black mass was still hovering over my body, but it was no longer trying to suffocate me. Instead, it was staring at me. Upon its face, or whatever I suppose you would call two vague yellow eye-shaped dots and a large mouth-shaped slash in a floating human-shaped puddle of ink, was a strange look of surprise, with, perhaps, a hint of terror. I peered around me. All of the white Zetsu that had been lucky enough not to be hit with Ino's technique before, and I assumed now that it was Black Zetsu that had caused her sudden failure, because she would have been fine had she only been hitting the white Zetsu tree clones, were frozen. Petrified. The ones Ino had killed were charcoal dust, as would be expected from wood being burnt by lightning. But the others, the ones that had survived the initial onslaught, were ghostly, gone, like they had had all the life force sucked out of them. How? I wondered that myself. Ino had been shocked into unconsciousness just by touching this thing. So why was I still okay? Still confused, I looked down at the ground. And I saw my shadow. What the hell? It was split, disconnected. Two pieces, without even the tiniest sliver to connect them. But that's impossible. My body is still in one piece? I gaped, and felt my jaw move, but my face looked normal. Still. My moving jaw was not my own, but immaterial, weightless, as if it was nothing but a shadow. Because I was me. I was my own shadow, and somehow, I was in two places at once, my shadow self staring at my own face which was staring at my shadow self. I looked down at my hands. They were devoid of light, of mass, of matter. I looked back up again. My mind was in two places at once. I was watching the world through two fields of vision, and through the eyes set in my human body, which was staring at my shadow self which was staring at my human body. I saw my own silhouette minus infinitely many of them, tucked inside each other, like two mirrors facing each other, reflecting their own light back and forth forever. There was my face, completely black, with only my features etched in yellow, my eyes and mouth a smiling streak of a mask, exactly in the same design as Black Zetsu's own. You will submit. Its anger rose in temperature. As did mine. Submit, was it? A challenge, was it? No. You dare? Black Zetsu hissed. None shall defy me and remain standing. None shall defy me and remain standing. None shall defy me and remain standing. None shall. Fuck, can you fucking believe this fucking thing? What the hell? The people I cared about were dying out there, and all this fucking piece of eldritch shit could say to me was some entitled bullshit about defiance. Like it was fucking born deserving to rule the world or some shit? Ino at the age of 2 could do better than that. I stared straight into its eyes and gave it the biggest fuck you I could. And yet here I am. Whatever this thing was, it evidently was not used to being refused. Black Zetsu screamed. It clawed at my brain. It dunked me headfirst in burning sand. It dragged me through 1,000 dimensions of fire and brimstone, but my will refused to budge. It was tar, but I was very definition of the absence of light. In that moment I personally embodied what it needed to exist. My fingers phased through its head, its gut, its heart, and with every puncture all I could think was an incoherent rage. The cold came back, whooshing past my ears, and suddenly, I was gone. For just a split second, I was hanging in non-existence. And then I was viewing the world from my regular body again. What the hell? Before my face, as far as the eye could see, which was not very far, seeing as we were in a forest that Kakuzu had just half burnt down, were fields upon fields of dead trees. They were not like the ones Ino had killed, electrified into black charcoal, but white, like death, all of them drained dry, their empty husks dotting the landscape like a monoculture orchard hit with a fungal blight. When had that happened? Vaguely in my mind, I recalled my father. I heard his voice saying, "Those who walk the shadows may very well become one with them over and over and over again." I thought of the technique he had invented for me, because of me. Was that me? I thought of that technique. I kept thinking of it, of how I always had so much trouble with it, of how I was always so frustrated with it because it was the first technique I'd ever faced that didn't come entirely naturally to me. I thought of how, despite all that, I had taken my father's warnings seriously and successfully resisted the temptation to go sneak off and try to practice it alone. I thought of the cold nights, the blackouts, the exhaustion, the headaches, and of course the rabbits, those gods be damned rabbits, but that was impossible. I still hadn't mastered it to a level which I could use in the field. But you had. I didn't. I couldn't have. You always knew how. Preposterous. Every night, when I attempted to use that technique, I always ended up blacking out before I could successfully split my shadow. If I had already mastered my father's technique, would I have willingly continued to suffer with him by the campfire every night, taking precious time out of my day to accomplish nothing except blackouts? Blackouts. You've always succeeded since your first try. Shit, you just never opened your eyes to witness it. So I opened my eyes. Black Zetsu was gone. Had been gone for quite some time. This entire time, I had been talking to no one but myself. Fire country. No, don't you dare. Kakashi heard the rumble before he felt it. Immediately he threw himself down over Ino, bracing his wrists around her head and neck. The bark on the tree trunks had been stripped smooth, sand blasted down like a beachside cliff. In the center of it was Naruto. Naruto and orange. Orange everywhere. Orange? Kakashi's pulse spiked, and vomit rushed up his throat. No, this can't be happening. No, not him too. Asuma's hand landed on his shoulder. Whoa, calm down. Different shade of orange, Kakashi. Relax. Look carefully. Orange, but the orange was not that of the Kyuubi. It wasn't a malevolent neon blaze, but a calm, warm glow, a fire in the hearth in the middle of a winter storm. It was the color of the dawn rising over the Hokage mountain, the color of both Minato and Kushina's fierce and unconditional love combined. It coated Naruto from head to toe, extending down his arms, searing the air and earth, exuding power with every link, and they were wrapping around the one-tailed tanuki like a bouquet of climbing vines. No, not vines, they were. Oh, Kakashi whispered. I would cross deserts and oceans to reach you, they sang, and with each chord the unyielding hatred of the Ichibi would subside. I, too, have felt your sorrows and anger. Your tears are my tears, your night terrors my dreams, your blood my own. We are brothers, you and I. Chains, chakra chains, forged from the deepest pits of Yuzushiogekure's eternally wandering soul. Discard the daggers others have placed in you. Retrieve the blades you have placed in others. Let go of the double-edged sword you sheathe in your own heart. In that moment, all the raw, hard mathematical logic in the world seemed so insignificant and useless, dwarfed by the sheer emotional strength of it was. Kakashi couldn't, he couldn't. Though the desert nights are cold and dark, tomorrow there always exists another dawn. For I am the whirlpool tides, always again rising. For I am Uzumaki, Naruto whispered, and his voice was as quiet as a million chanting ghosts, innumerable and breathtaking. "Who are you?" It was funny. He'd been put in situations where he'd felt small and worthless before. Like nothing he ever did would make a difference. Like no matter what he tried, he wouldn't be able to protect the people he cared about. It always made him feel so awful. And yet, here, somehow, it felt absolutely wonderful, knowing that instead of floating along in the universe, completely alone, he was instead existing as a part of something greater. And that was more than okay by him. "I know who you wish to be, Gaara of the desert, and who you are. This is not who you are." The poison receded, the waves of sand disappeared, the monster dissolved away to reveal a little boy just as beat and terrified as they all were. Gaara sat down and began to cry. Cold, slimy disappointment crept up Hinata's spine as soon as she saw why Inoichi Yamanaka was no longer sending their team any more messages. Choji came forward, a question on his face. Hinata was forced to shake her head no. That was the universal sign. Everyone knew what that meant. He was gone. They had arrived too late. There was nothing she could do. She was a doctor, not a magician. She could pull men back from the brink of death, but she could not revive them once they had crossed that line. There was a difference between not being able to save a heavily injured person, and just not being able to do anything at all. Both were equally saddening to a healer, having a chance to save a life but then failing, or not even getting that chance in the first place. "If only I hadn't been stupid enough to get injured," she berated herself. "I should have been saving him, not myself." She cursed her stupid body for shutting down right when she needed it most. Inoichi Yamanaka had needed her help more than that, and she hadn't been able to give it minus. As they inspected Haiden's sand-riddled corpse, Hinata suddenly got a very morbid idea, and immediately afterwards she wondered if something was wrong with her. Then she shrugged to herself. She was training to become a doctor. She dealt with internal organs, diseases, squishy things and death, on a regular basis. Morbid was a part of the job description, and collecting Haiden's remains for research would do more good than harm in the long run. At that moment, a boy her age, the boy all this bloodshed had happened for, limped forward. "Hello? How do you do?" "My name is Gaara," he said, as if he was reading off note cards, unsure of his own identity. Hinata stood there for a second, unsure of what to do, and then tentatively approached him. For all she knew, he could be unstable, and snap and turn on her instead. She had seen his rage just now, focused on their common enemy, thankfully, but now that he was gone, it could very well be her next. As a doctor, she was always taught to err on the side of caution. "Are you all right, Inoichi?" "It's all my fault," Gaara whispered. "Those men were after me and they hurt all of you because of me, and then Inoichi, he's because of me minus." "No, don't say that," Hinata whispered. "It's not your fault. It's never your fault. It was those bad men who chose to attack you, which only went to reinforce the old rules she had learned. As a soldier, as a doctor, as a human, no one was immortal. Anyone could die. At any time. I'm supposed to be the medic," she added on. "If it's your fault, then it's mine too." Hinata cast another glance at Inoichi Yamanaka's lifeless form, still cooling on the ground. Enemies or friends, ninja or civilian, man, woman, or child, anyone can die in any place at any time. Anyone. Choji looked as if the entire world had been yanked out from underneath his feet. Hinata knew why. Though Ino Shikacho was no longer a team for this generation, they were still close. Inoichi Yamanaka was a good friend of Chusa Akimichi. The man would have been an uncle to him in name if not in blood. Though not just Choji. Inoichi Yamanaka had been a well-liked man within Konoha. Even Hayashi Hyuga had few negative things to say about him, as he normally did for most people. He was... Choji began. "Already beyond my help when we got here," she said quietly. This man had not just been a shinobi of Konoha. He had been someone she personally knew. Someone her friends knew. Choji. Shikamaru. Ino. Naruto. The war had finally arrived at their doorsteps. And, "Oh God," Naruto whispered. "What are we going to tell Ino?" Right at that moment, Ino chose to stir back into consciousness. "Tell me what?" Chapter 57, Non-Existence. Fire Country. He wanted to jump and scream, yell at everyone that everything was going to be okay, that he was Naruto Uzumaki, the greatest of ninjas since forever, and that he'd fix everything for all of them, no sweat. But he didn't, because he was Naruto Uzumaki, and Naruto Uzumaki always kept his promises, meaning he couldn't carelessly throw around promises he was unable to keep. The Sage of Six Paths had been the first person born with chakra. According to the legends, he'd been a god, And even he couldn't solve every problem, save every man. Even he couldn't stop all war and end all suffering. Or maybe he could, but that would be taking away people's choices, because part of suffering came from people themselves, and not the things around them. There could be no war, or famine, or disease. Everyone could have everything they ever needed and more, and things still wouldn't be perfect. People would still argue, and get mad, or sad. It was their right, as humans. The problem was when they started hurting other people, dragging them down to their level, all so they could feel better about themselves. Naruto didn't like thinking that people were born hurtful or mean or even evil, because babies were, babies. But people chose to do what they liked, to become what they wanted to be. Two people could be right but different and still argue. And being sad or mad was okay, he'd been that way before, as long as you didn't stay that way. He could get people to stop fighting and hating each other, but he couldn't make people stop arguing, because if he used his powers to force people to all stop arguing and be creepily happy all the time, he'd have to make everyone think the same way, and that was even more bad than simply letting people make their own mistakes. So a problem like that, even the most powerful and perfect of gods couldn't fix. A problem like that was up to humans to solve, and Naruto quite liked being human. He could become as powerful as a god for all he cared, but he never would want to actually be a god. Maybe one day, he would become as powerful as a god. If he was, then he'd try to make everyone as happy as possible. It would take a lot of work. Even then, he might not be able to solve everyone's problems for them, because people needed to learn to be responsible and deal with things on their own sometimes. And some people would never be happy, no matter how much you gave them, as he learned after many deranks involving ungrateful customers. Naruto knew that problems didn't always magically disappear. If they did, the world would be a pretty boring place. Even if I could end all war and suffering, I wouldn't bring the dead back to life. Messing around with life and death always ended badly. The dog boss had made that all too clear. He loved his friends so goddamn much, but he knew neither Ino nor Inoichi Yamanaka would accept him messing around with his own soul for their sake. All the power in the world can't stop pain. It can only ease it with the passing of time. Naruto hated thinking so much. Even if he was as smart as Shikamaru, he would never be able to understand the entire world. You could never tell what anyone was thinking. No wonder why people fought so much, instead of trying to reason things out. Fighting was simple. It was easier to fight. The other guy was trying to hurt you and you were trying to hurt the other guy, and no matter who started it, you were merely trying to live to the next millisecond, never mind the next 10 years. Why die for your country, when you could make the other guy die for his? But of course war and suffering was always the most awful thing. It was what led to this, in the first place. It was his mission, and he fucking blew it. He followed all the rules, did everything that was asked of him, brought home all the intel that Konoha wanted, and yet he'd failed the biggest mission of all, and the worst part was, it hadn't even been assigned to them. All he could do now was move forward to catch Ino in his arms as she collapsed to the ground, keening like her world had just completely ended. It probably had. Konoha. I watched helplessly from the sidelines. I wanted to say something more, but I didn't know what. How could I? When a loved one died, there was little anyone could do apart from letting grief take its natural course. All any of us could do now was provide her our support. Which, I now realized I was pretty shit at. Deciding I would inadvertently make things worse if I insisted on my direct involvement, I decided it would probably be best if I let Naruto take care of the emotional aspect of things. There were other things for me to give my attentions to, things that might not have been as immediately painful to Ino as the loss of her father, but no less harmful. Did your summons bring any reply from Jiraiya? I asked Kakashi-sensei. He'll meet us at the gate. If we're lucky, he'll be able to buy us a few days. Stalling, under the pretense of checking out Gaara's seal, while we do whatever we need to do, he answered. That was not ideal, but no worse than I expected. Inoichi Yamanaka had been the center of a lot of Konoha's inner dealings. Exactly what, well, that was murky, though my information network had grown. Throughout most of Konoha, the patrons of the kunai bars and other shinobi hangouts, Tanyu, and the clients of Ino's gossip column, it provided me little insight as to what my father had been up to with the other clan heads. Leaks from the Hokage tower were so much easier to get my hands on than leaks from my father's desk. He held his cards close to his chest and guarded them ferociously, which was annoying, but also comforting in a way. Whatever my father was planning, it was undoubtedly not something we would want anyone outside of his little circle of friends to know. If I successfully managed to breach their silence, who else could? Ino, of course, was in no state to get involved in any of this. I'd have to take care of it myself. What the hell happened back there, anyway? Kakashi-sensei asked. My mouth opened and closed. I don't know, I said honestly. I wanted so badly to tell him about everything, but I had no idea how to begin, even. You're going to have to learn to deal with this water problem of yours, Kakashi-sensei said softly. I noticed he couldn't stop staring at his hands. When we get back, I muttered. For your information, it does get better. Not much. But something is better than nothing. That's good. I understand how she killed all the Zetsu clones. I understand how lightning jutsu works, and how it can theoretically, now practically, thanks to be transferred over large insulated channels. Kakashi-sensei narrowed his eyes. What I don't understand is you. I shrugged, trying to play my attitude off as nonchalant. To be fair, I don't get it either. Not that it worked on him. You didn't overload their physical defenses, nor did you touch their chakra, nor did you engage them on a mental level, Kakashi-sensei recited as if out of habit, smoothly ticking off his fingers as he went along. No doubt discerning the abilities of a shinobi from the corpses they left behind was an important survival skill from his childhood. The closest description I have for how they died is simply losing their will to live, except that sort of thing kills gradually. I nodded. I could only imagine how creepy it was to see a forest completely waste away into shadowy ghosts of themselves before my eyes, like watching a time-lapse of those forgotten prisoners of war in the ANBU cells, once proud fighting shinobi reduced to lethargic skeletons, whose only crime was inhabiting that unlucky medium between being too skilled to die but not skilled enough to escape. It's not something I can explain. Secret clan technique? Sure, let's call it that, I said. My dad's, I added quickly, Kakashi-sensei hummed. And he knows you have it? Yes. This wasn't a lie. Are you going to talk to him about it, now that you've used it in the field? I kind of have to, don't I? I suppose you do, I sighed. So. About Gaara? Yes. Him. Kakashi-sensei was deep in thought. I'll talk to Asuma-sensei. You talk to Choji. I don't think I have to explain to you why. Of course not. Politics was a wretched thing. It gave me a nasty thrill, but I could easily understand why others avoided it like the plague. Kakashi-sensei was one of those people. Unlike most of those who despised politics, however, it wasn't out of any innate sense of moral superiority. Kakashi-sensei simply hated most things. The act of the tasteless buffoon that would gladly defend anything on sale with a 5-star rating fooled none of us. I ambled over to Choji and asked if he was okay. No worse off than you guys, he replied. That was really something, huh? Got an S-rank kill on my resume now. He chuckled weakly. What are we going to do, Shikamaru? I swallowed. Ino's father died to get Gaara back to Konoha. Whatever happens, we can't let his efforts be for nothing. If word gets out that he lost control after all Inoichi did for him, who knows where they'll reassign him to? He's only our age. They might stick him in a more severe ANBU program, Choji realized. Which might make him more unstable, or worse. Yeah. And to make matters worse, you know that mission we were coming home from? We were at the C5 Economic Conference, and the daimyo of all the nations were there except Wind, because he, and both his sons, are dead. His younger brother holds the title now, and he just named Gaara's significantly more aggressive sister, Temari. I'm not exaggerating. Yes, she is more aggressive than he is, the newest Kazekage. Probably because she killed them. What? Where is she now? Is she gonna come after us? No idea. Her main body of support is made up of warhawks and militants, so why don't you tell me? I ran a hand through my hair. Look. Gaara only got mad because his first real friend just died. He didn't hurt any of us, his allies. He only went after Haiden and Kakuzu and the Zetsu things. I mean, I'm sure it was scary as fuck, but so is watching any random jonin in action, right? So, I don't know, do you think you can convince Asuma-sensei and Hinata and Sasuke to pretend that, nothing happened? Nothing out of the ordinary, I mean. Naruto had a little thing, episode 2, right? Choji asked. See, this was what I liked about Choji. You didn't have to say the whole sentence out loud for him to understand what you were getting at. Just a tiny one, because, again, unanticipated intruders showed up and he thought we died. And it wasn't even that bad. We're all still here, right? I grabbed Choji's shoulders. Please. I'm begging you. We can't let anyone get a whiff of this. They could use it to go, see, the Yamanaka clan techniques can't be that good. Because look at what a sucky job they did on this kid. Let me take control, and I'll do better, and they'll definitely make him way worse. Choji understood well enough to finish my thoughts for me. And Ino's father won't even be alive to defend himself. Meanwhile, Ino's family won't be able to do anything about it, because they're going to be busy planning the funeral and getting her caught up with the duties of a clan head. So they'll just be forced to sit there while they lose face. Exactly, I'm with you on this. I'm pretty sure I can get Sasuke and Hinata on board pretty easily, too. They totally get what it's like, on a personal level, to get beaten down so far you can't stand it anymore. But I'm not sure about Asuma-sensei. He might not want to lie to his dad. It's not lying. It's conveniently being unable to recall. Maybe I'll ask Kakashi-sensei. They're from the same generation-ish. They should be able to talk to each other more easily. Secrets were a currency of their own, and I had bought and traded plenty, both for Ino's gossip column and for my own purposes. Nothing in Tanyu was ever a secret, and what happened there only stayed there as long as you had enough insurance for mutually assured destruction. It was thanks to those misadventures with the butterfly that I now had a sufficient number of backup plans, the least of which involved just exactly what the man had been up to without the Sandame's knowledge while he was one of the 12 guardian ninja, none of which I hoped I would have to end up using, so I prayed to the heavens and back that Kakashi-sensei would be able to simply convince Asuma-sensei without any of that. It left a poisonous feeling in my gut, even considering blackmailing a fellow Konoha nin, but what else could I possibly do? This was Ino's family name at stake. Our families had been allied for generations before Konoha was even an idea in the Shodame's head. Luckily, that did not come to pass. Asuma-sensei had already been considering keeping quiet before this, and playing the sympathy card for both Gaara and Ino worked surprisingly well. As we stood giving our cropped reports in the Hokage's office, there was also the niggling thought in the back of my head that maybe, just maybe, this was Asuma-sensei's tiny bit of rebellion against the Sandame, that perhaps their feud from all those years ago hadn't been entirely resolved after all. Not that I was going to risk alienating him by asking. We were unbelievably lucky that the only other team in the area alive to witness Gaara's little meltdown had been Team 10, and that Team 10 had been willing to cooperate with my little plan. It could have very well been a no-name group with no connection to us at all and would gladly report to whatever superior asked. Perhaps this was fortune's way of making up for all our missions turning out so shitty. Take a little luck away here, give a little luck back there. Of course, we wouldn't have needed it in the first place if the Akatsuki hadn't attacked. Dude, you guys look like someone sent you through meat grinder. What the heck happened? That voice was familiar. I turned around. Good to see you too, Izumo. And I dare say you'll hear on the grapevine soon enough. His new rank seemed to suit him well. Last I heard, he already had a few good A ranks under his belt. I prayed my recommendation hadn't been a mistake. Of course, since he was promoted, that was on Konoha and not on me. Oh, come on. I don't want to wait that long when I have the source right here. Let me be the root of the grapevine for once. Guess so. I mean, think of the paperwork this will generate, huh? Bet you're really appreciating the rank upgrade now. Izumo and I shared a laugh, but it was awkward and dead. It was kind of hard to miss the body bags. And the injuries. Listen, I said, I know this is way below your pay grade, but can you deliver a message for me? Just to the guys in the office. They know me, don't worry. I'd cozied up to the replacements as much as I could after Izumo had left for more elevated pastures. Sure, good. You see that kid, Gaara, that we just brought in? I need you to schedule an appointment for a full psych eval for him as soon as possible. Get Ibiki and Santa Yamanaka in on it. If they both agree, then no one can dispute their verdict. And if you see a different request for a psych eval that doesn't involve those two, do not by any means process it. I refused to believe that the timid, crying boy in front of me was irredeemably violent, and I was not going to let anyone ruin Ino's father's hard work by saying otherwise, and officially approve guardianship claims for him under either Jiraiya or Yamato. No one else. Understand? No one else. Izumo blinked. Sure, but why not Inoichi? His eyes fell on Ino and the body bag. Oh. That was fuck. This isn't going to be pretty, is it? No, I said. Not at all. The Nara clan compound. They had been so close. So damn close. Shikaka stared morosely at the ANBU reports of the Uchiha massacre. The ones that Inoichi had worked so painstakingly hard to get. The ones that Inoichi had been planning to investigate further when he came back. Gone. Disappeared in the last breath that Inoichi had taken like a gust of wind. There was only so much the others could do. Ibiki was the highest ranked of his remaining allies within ANBU intelligence, and the clearance level he had to the rest of their records was significantly lower than Inoichi's. There was a knock at his door, accompanied with a coded spark of chakra. Shikamaru was home. No doubt with full knowledge of the same bad news, seeing as he had been there in person. Was it fast, at least? Shikaku asked. It couldn't have taken more than a few minutes, Shikamaru shrugged. Between him calling us for help, and him already being dead for a while when we finally found him, good enough. If Inoichi had suffered, then he hadn't suffered for long. How is Ino? Not good, suboptimal, but as expected. And you? I'm okay. Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? Yeah. It would have been more convincing if his son's voice hadn't cracked near the end of that answer. Shikaku knew the difference between puberty and pain, even if teenagers worldwide swore they were the same thing. Even without having to ask what exactly happened during that mission, he recognized the look in his son's eyes. The same look he'd had after. I take it water was involved somehow. Shikamaru's wince was all the confirmation he needed. I'm not going to force you to go to therapy, or otherwise impose my own idea of treatment upon you, Shikaku said. I think you are smart enough on your own to realize that letting something like this continue to go on will likely end up with you dead in the field. Figure out for yourself how you can fix things. Shikamaru nodded meekly. Good. If you ever need my help, of course I will. What about Ino? Shikamaru quickly changed the subject. Shikaku narrowed his eyes. We will, of course, help the Yamanaka, as they have helped us in the past. Don't play dumb, Dad. We know each other too well for that. Ino's father died for a reason. My question is the reason exactly as I saw it when my team failed to save him, or was it due to something else? Something which you seem to know more about than me, despite not being there at all? Shikamaru suddenly demanded. Shikaku froze. Then, he closed his eyes and took a few deep breaths. He opened his mouth, intending to respond, and then, after some internal debate, decided to reach into the bottom drawer of his desk and pull out some sake instead. And what makes you think that? After the whole Chunin exam debacle, you said you'd allow me to stay more involved, but I'd have to be an idiot to think you'd tell me everything. For years you and Ino's father, and who knows how many other clan heads have been plotting behind the Hokage's back, all because of this one random retired war veteran whom no one has seen in years, a man I had to dig through 4 generations worth of files to even get a name on. And now Inoichi Yamanaka is dead. Shikamaru accused. It was a perfectly reasonable explanation, mixed with enough truth to make it believable, which probably meant it was a lie, then, to hide his true sources. Shikaku doubted his son, no matter how talented, could have gleaned all that from snooping just by himself. But of course Shikaku could never prove it. Shikamaru was too good at what he did for that. How about this, said Shikaku, wondering when his son had become an adult. You come clean to me, honestly, about everything you've been up to, and I'll come clean to you, about everything I've been up to. That's never going to happen and you know it. Fine. 1 for 1. Quid pro quo. You tell me something of yours, and in exchange I tell you something of mine for equal value. You go first. A game of shogi. Winner gets to go second. Sound fair? He shouldn't have had to be doing this. This trading of information, as if they were two foreign nin wanting to collaborate with each other but being afraid of either one betraying the other. They were father and son. This sort of information exchange should have been natural, no strings attached. Shikamaru looked so sad. Shikaku imagined he must have had the same look on his face as well. This was, well, it was his fault. He started it first, all the secrecy and lies. If only he had just come clean with Shikamaru before, maybe his son would be more open to sharing with him. Now, regaining one another's mutual trust would be a steep uphill climb. Should we be doing this? Just next door, our allies for the past 16 generations are falling apart, and here we are, deciding fate with a board game. Shikaku looked at the dark rings underneath his son's eyes. They were similar to his own, and he'd been working on them for decades. That, more than anything, hit him right in the heart. His son was still just a kid, much as he liked to pretend otherwise. He shouldn't have to be carrying so many weights at this point in time. When Shikaku was at that age, he was sleeping in until noon and figuring out how to avoid Yoshino. Well, that hadn't changed, but the point was, Shikamaru's talent and drive were being punished instead of rewarded, and that was most unfair. Yeah, forget that, he muttered, reaching for the copy of Inoichi's report. Here. Take it. It's all yours. You don't need to tell me anything you've been doing on the side. Just, at the same time, Shikamaru blurted out, that whole period of time I couldn't train. I was bored as hell. I needed something to do, and my team had just gotten hurt. I didn't want to be a sitting duck again. I set up a personal network, and it's been running since, from here to Tanyu to anywhere Ino's gossip magazine sells, which is everywhere. He sighed. But stuff like the Akatsuki, or Danzo, Shikaku prompted. The readings I get from Jonin Bar gossip is hazy at best. Concerning those terrorists, only have about 10 people in their organization, while most people don't even remember anyone from the Hokage's generation apart from the Hokage himself. Shikamaru looked up at him pleadingly. But if we share what we each have, then we'll both do better. Please, Dad? Ino's a clan head now. Plausible deniability won't save me, or Ino, or Naruto anymore. We are all in danger. You cannot expect to shield us forever. You cannot let me turn weak. The best way to protect me is to teach me how to protect myself. Protect yourself, or go running into more danger, because if I do not seek out the danger will come to me. At least, in this way, I know exactly what I am dealing with. Both from their side, and from you. I can be helpful, Dad. I promise. You were just a child, Shikaku explained. You were barely in the academy, and yet you displayed so much potential. Danzo Shimura wanted you, Shikamaru, just like he wanted Fu Yamanaka and Shino Aburame. Shikamaru blinked. I always suspected you were a part of this whole mess, but I had no idea how far your web extended. I could say the same for you. Anyone with limited time and resources to go after a specific demographic of allies would naturally gear towards the major power blocks, as he and Danzo both knew. Why court the average soldier who knew nothing about the plots dictating their lives when they could instead gain the power of the clans? In comparison, the ordinary, the grunts, the painfully average administrative pencil pusher chun in every village had an abundant supply of, to do the work that would have otherwise fallen into civilian hands simply because of clearance level, were the dregs at the bottom of the barrel. Shikamaru had taken these overlooked and forgotten and entirely unimportant individuals because, as a 12-year-old kid playing a game meant for adults, they were the only leftover demographic available. To men who already had the power and clearance Danzo and Shikaku had, they were pretty useless. To a kid constantly left out of the loop like Shikamaru, such an insane amount of control over Konoha's bureaucracy was a good start. What he had gained since that good start, on the other hand, was far beyond useless. Shikaku only felt fortunate that his son was on his side. Somehow, he didn't like the feeling of being dependent on this brand of luck at all. Chapter 58. The Unwelcome Homecoming. The Nara clan compound. I let go of my anger. I could never stay mad at my father for long. It wasn't a matter of whether or not anyone deserved it, but a matter of practicality. Anger was counterproductive to proper thinking and planning. I couldn't very well march up to Danzo Shimura, or the Hokage, or whoever else was orchestrating this and call them out on it, could I? Really, though? I asked. Shino? Yes, him. He didn't go, they took his cousin instead. Torian Aburame. For secret training, which meant even if we found him again they would not be ours, but Danzo Shimura's. How could I watch you become the same thing? How could I sit back and let such things happen to you? I was but a young man then, a new father. I wanted to do all I could to protect my family. I still do. The moment he set his sights on you I had no choice but to make him my enemy, not that he could have ever been my friend. How many? HM? You mentioned Shibi Aburame. Who else is involved in this? Clearly, Ino's father was. I'm guessing Choji's father too. I pointed to the Uchiha report. Who else did you rope into this little scheme of yours? Saminazuka. Hopefully, Hayashi Hyuga. I drew in a breath. Is every clan in Konoha? That was my goal, yes. I could see why. The balance of powers in Konoha was a very delicate one. The Hokage held the position of top command, of course. But the clans also had substantial leverage, even the ones that were near extinction like the Senju or Uchiha. And of course, the Hokage answered to the daimyo, Danzo Shimura. He was the fourth bar in a rickety triangle, a powerful force that seemed necessary but really shouldn't have been there in the first place. So that's it then? I asked quietly. Everything we tried to do, all the lies and the going behind people's backs, and it still wasn't enough right when we needed it most? My father shook his head and offered up the Uchiha papers again. Just read it. These were the last thing Inoichi gave to you before he died? I asked, and he nodded. You know, before this, my two major suspects were the Akatsuki working independently. They had a member capable of fast intel collection, or Gaara's older sister. Ah, yes. Temari is proving herself to be an extremely aggressive Kazekage, so I've heard. My father smiled. Again, thank the heavens that I had made the appropriate prayers for the paperwork. God's blessings. Sadly, that means the regular rules when dealing with her are completely out the window. Konoha. For all those weeks leading up to his move to Konoha, Gaara had spent his nights dreaming of all the things he'd get to do once he finally arrived. Making friends, meeting people who didn't hate him, finding more things to do. He had gotten his hopes up so high. Konoha was supposed to be sunny and happy and perfect, and he was supposed to live with Inoichi's family, and spend his days making friends and meeting lots of people who didn't hate him and didn't know he was a monster. And Inoichi's daughter and her team saw him for who he was. And oh god, she probably hated him now because Inoichi died to protect him, and she probably thought that he killed Inoichi because that was what Gaara did. He killed things and he let Inoichi down. He wasn't even with Inoichi's family. They had transferred him to a different place. It was a nice place, cozy, more lived in than the cells he came from before. An old man named Jiraiya sometimes checked up on him. Jiraiya liked to drink a lot. He also talked about women in ways that Gaara was still having trouble understanding. Apart from that, Gaara didn't see very many people. Ibiki came over to visit sometimes. Gaara liked that. Ibiki was the only one he really knew in this place. There was that other guy, Santa, who sort of looked Inoichi, but with red hair. He said that Gaara was fine, and that he wouldn't have to go through much therapy again unless he wanted to. Gaara didn't know how true that was. He had relapsed really badly when he saw Inoichi die. He couldn't help it, it had been too much. Gaara wondered if they were going to have to start over again, the whole therapy thing, and then he wondered how were they going to do that, now that Inoichi was gone. It took him days to finally summon up the courage to ask. Are they all right? Ibiki tapped the back of his pencil on some papers. Ino Yamanaka is busy getting her affairs in order. She is the new clan head of the Yamanaka now. Her team is assisting her through these hard times. Don't worry, they haven't forgotten you. Gaara's stomach dropped, but he swallowed down the disappointment. It was to be expected. He didn't dare intrude. They had known each other for longer, so of course they were more important. It hurt though. Inoichi talked about his family a lot, and Gaara loved listening. They were supposed to be full of chatter in life, just as Inoichi had been, which fascinated Gaara, the idea of a family that was always communicating with each other, not shrouded in loss. If he was in their position, he probably wouldn't want to look at his face either. This was supposed to be a second chance, a fresh start for him, and instead he went and totally blew it. He wanted so badly to talk to them, but he didn't think he could face their definite rejection, because by now probably everyone knew what a monster he was. And the others? The other team that was there, Team Asuma. Their Jonin leader is the son of the Hokage, and the other members are all heirs to 3 of Konoha's great 4 clans, Ibiki explained. With the added disguises and cover story we've prepared for you, you needn't worry about your secret getting out. As far as anyone on the street is concerned, Ibiki trailed off. Gaara started and realized that this was a prompt. I'm an orphan who grew up in a place bordering fire country, he recited. My mother died, and I never really saw my father after I was born, nor did she. Many shinobi, specifically Konoha shinobi, passed through our town, and the Hokage has kindly allowed me to stay here, just like all the others. Just like all the others, Gaara repeated. War babies were common enough that no one would care to look at them more than twice. The fact that nothing in his cover story was technically a lie, though the placement of each sentence was purposefully designed to mislead, also helped. Ibiki smiled. See, you've got the hang of this. No one will know you're a Jinchuriki apart from those people, and they can be trusted to keep quiet. He scratched at his face. He looked different with fake eyebrows and his tattoo missing and his hair dyed a dull brown. It was uncomfortable, but necessary, because his mere existence could cause a violent uproar, possibly war. So I just lie to people then? Gaara asked sadly. Just think of it as omitting some details. Everyone does it. There's no crime in keeping your personal life personal. Jiraiya sometimes took him to the hospital to visit another lady named Tsunade. When he practiced those lines on the nurses passing in and out of the waiting room, they at least regarded him with the same politeness one would give to a strange foreign entity. None of them went out of their way to befriend him as Inoichi had. Perhaps it was because they were so caught up in recent events that they had no time to spare him any excess thought. Or maybe it was because Inoichi was the special one among them. He had no idea. At this point, the best he could hope for was vague camaraderie, business partners bound under the same company that was the Konohagakure no Sato, Konoha. What was he here? Did he even belong? Inoichi had assured him that it would be more welcoming than Suna, and true, they did not revile him, yet but only because they had no idea what he had done. Surely, if the truth came out, they would turn their backs on him. Within himself he still felt lost. He was a strange foreigner to them. He had only been here once before for a particularly disastrous set of Chunin exams. He doubted any of them even remembered him, as he had never competed, or otherwise bothered, to interact in public. He loved Konoha, wanted to be one of them, and yet he could not, for no matter how hard he tried there were just parts of the culture that he did not understand. A childhood, if you could call it that, surrounded by dry air and sand dunes was too ill-fitted to the strange references, the childhood games, the inside jokes and slang, the popular ideas that floated around like second nature to these people. Or maybe it was his personal problem. There were other immigrants here, foreigners who had been born and raised somewhere else, and then moved here to settle for work and business reasons or some such. Those people had assimilated perfectly fine. It was his own problem. He was sure of that. All his life he had approached people only to have them drive him away. And now that he was no longer being chased away from everything, he was the one, how painfully ironic, causing his own isolation. And now there was no Inoichi to help him walk through anything. Do I have to lie to Inoichi's daughter and her friends too? How long am I going to stay here? How can we be certain that I'm not going to lose control again? Because I don't want to lose control. I want to be good, but I don't know how, and you're putting yourself in danger just by being in the same room as me minus. His heart pounded. He couldn't breathe. It was like an elephant was sitting on him. The room spun. Gaara grabbed the tiny wastebasket by Ibiki's desk and, humiliatingly, vomited right on top of all the paper. He fully expected Ibiki to be angry at him, but Ibiki only placed a hand on the back of his head and rubbed circles into his back as he emptied his stomach. When he was done, there was a glass of water already waiting for him. Gaara blinked in confusion, fully expecting the joke to be over, but Ibiki never said a word. "Thank you," he said, like Inoichi had taught him. "Listen, Gaara," said Ibiki. "Inoichi and I have worked together for many years, and I have the utmost respect for him. I am trained as an interrogator, the darker side of psychology, if you will. But that doesn't mean I learned nothing from him. He's a good man." Gaara sniffled. "I'm sorry for ruining your trash can. I'll clean it out myself, I promise. Don't worry about it. It's just a trash can." "Look," Ibiki knelt down and looked him in the eye, "anxiety is a bitch. I know from personal experience. You've seen underneath the bandana, right? I walk around with those scars like it's nothing, but trust me, that whole month after I was extracted from that torture cell, I was a wreck. I still get problems about that sometimes. And I learned that a lot of the time, the very thing that started those panic attacks was thinking about them in the first place. But how do I slow down, Gaara? One question at a time. First of all, you don't have to lie to any of the people that were there. They're smart enough not to say anything. And secondly, we'll be putting you through a special training programs with another one of our operatives. Yamato, you know Yamato? I think he's seen you in passing before. Will be helping you control your tailed beast. He's already done a great deal helping our native Konoha Jinchuriki with great success. We will provide you the resources to help yourself, Gaara. You needn't worry. And what about the men that were, you know, the ones with the funny cloaks? Those bad men that killed Inoichi, Ibiki told him, are on the lookout for people like you. Jinchuriki, see? They've already hurt everyone else. You're one of the last ones left." Gaara gulped. "What do you mean, one of the last ones?" "Well, there's you. And then the 8 tails and 2 tails are in Kumogakure's possession, we believe, though Yujitoni has recently dropped off the map, so even her status is dubious. You're powerful, Gaara, and people want that power for their own use." That was a big fat lie. If he had been so powerful, then why was Inoichi dead? "And who else knows about my power now?" he asked. "I messed up so bad back there. I lost control. I was a monster. A big fat horrible minus." "You're not a monster," Ibiki said flatly. "Unless Inoichi Yamanaka was lying. Or an idiot." "Are you calling Inoichi Yamanaka a liar or an idiot?" "No. Of course not. You killed trees," Gaara said Ibiki, "and you helped kill people who were trying to kill you, but killing was bad, so he wouldn't do it anymore. At least, killing outside of orders. Inoichi had told him that if the order was given, then it was okay. Now Inoichi was dead. How was he supposed to know who was okay to kill and who wasn't? Could he trust Ibiki? Maybe. And Inoichi's daughter? Inoichi thought highly of her. He said good things about the Hokage, too, but he didn't talk about the Hokage as much as he talked about his family. The guy could talk. A lot. I lost control. If the others hadn't been busy trying to stop me, they could have. Maybe if he had learned to control Shikaka like he was supposed to, then maybe the Kazekage would have liked him better. Maybe Sunagakure would have liked him better. Maybe Baki wouldn't have given him away. I hate to say it, Gaara, but Inoichi was dead before they even arrived. Whatever you did was an inconvenience, true, but it had no bearing on Inoichi's fate. There was nothing you could have done to help, which sounds bad, but at the same time there was nothing you did that severely hurt us, either. Ibiki shrugged. But I wasn't good at all. Why don't we work on not being bad, first, said Ibiki, and then we'll go from there. Gaara nodded. He decided that, in Inoichi's absence, he would like Ibiki instead. When growing up in Sunagakure, he'd heard horror stories about this man, how he was a specialist in torture and interrogation. But the Ibiki he knew was a man who had lost the same friend Gaara had, who taught him how to breathe and count every time he got nervous, and gave him warm milk before he went to bed. Those other stories about this man being able to make even the most nightmarish murderous monsters of the world bend and bow to his every whim must have been total lies, he decided. Gaara, can you get me that pen, please? Gaara picked it up and handed it to him. It was the least he could do. The Yamanaka clan compound. Inhale. Time to get up, Ino. Exhale. Time to meet with your team, Ino. Inhale. Time to eat, Ino. Exhale. Time to talk to some people you don't care about, Ino. Inhale. Time to sleep, Ino. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. In minus. Why was this happening? It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair, it wasn't fair, it was not fair. Why did it have to be her father? Why did it have to be her? Who were these gods of death, who had the right to take her father from her? Ino caught a glimpse of her own face in her mirror. The big ugly pink scar crisscrossed across her forehead and cheeks, like a spider web of cracks across old china plates, like a bolt of lightning splitting the sky in half. She looked at her reflection. She was disgusted by it. It was hideous, her electrical burns. She hated her face. She hated herself, for being too slow to do anything. She hated those men, for killing her father. She hated her father, for leaving her. She hated everyone who stopped by and delivered those empty, socially expected words of condolences, and then carried on as normal moments later. She hated her own family, standing around and whispering, how are we going to manage the leadership now? She's 14 behind her back as if she couldn't hear them. Did the gods like to play stupid games with them? Was she being punished? Because if that was the case, then she was so sorry. She really was. She thought of all those people whose deaths she had ordered. Names, personalities, identities she had deleted off the face of the earth, and then afterwards justified like it was some sort of game. And now she was getting a taste of her own medicine, showing on the surface exactly what sort of disgusting murdering liar she was on the inside. Feeling death close and personal, striking straight home, and by the gods it was so much harder to accept when it was something close to her. All those nameless, faceless men everywhere, she'd forgotten as soon as they had gone. Remember where you come from, Ino. You are a Yamanaka. You are a guardian of the minds of men, a keeper of their souls, for in this world where bodies might rot and wither, the mind is all there is. The moment you forget that, the moment you dismiss the value of even one man's consciousness, is the moment you lose your own. And then the gods will laugh and strike you down to earth again, for if there is one thing they like to do, it is remind a mortal exactly where he comes from. But this one would be burned into her mind forever. Without thinking, she drew back her hand and punched her reflection as hard as she could. The mirror smashed to pieces, shards going into her knuckles and cutting open her palms. This was all normal, right? She knew Kakashi-sensei did it all the time, showing up to team meetings with bruised knuckles instead of glassy ones. Probably because after some point he'd stopped buying mirrors and learned to shave by kunai point. 7 more years of bad luck, and counting, except that Team 7's terrible luck would probably still be terrible regardless of superstition. Broken mirrors and dead albatrosses, it would all be the same either way. She didn't care. She wanted it to end. Here, Naruto said, holding out a roll of bandage tape. Go away. Naruto looked at her. And then he took a step forward. No, Naruto. Get out now. I said no. Ino glared at him in silence. Naruto stared back, unwavering. Whatever, she muttered listlessly, but she placed her hand in his palms. It's unbearable, isn't it? The feeling of being alone in the world. Floating like a cork on water, an unanchored ship at sea. Not having anyone. Being lost and lonely. Seeing someone you thought would always be there for you, someone you never imagined leaving, suddenly disappearing into the shadows, just like that. Gone, just like that. Naruto twiddled his thumbs. I can't remember my parents, but I get what it feels like, not knowing what the next day would bring. vanishing unnoticed into thin air like a nameless nobody without having made a memorable mark on the world, with no one to mourn my passing or remember my name after 6 months. I hate it, bawled. I hate not being able to do anything. If we'd just been faster. I killed so many people and I didn't even care about them, and look at me falling apart when one person I know dies. I can't do this minus. You can, Naruto whispered. You're the strongest person I know. You saved me from myself. It's time I did the same for you. Ino shook her head. Shut up, Naruto kept speaking, his words like magic, and she had never known he could be so eloquent verbally, given his atrocious syntax and grammar on paper. But he could do it, and she was hearing his skill now. For what it's worth, I still think you're beautiful. And yeah, I know you still think of me as a younger brother. I don't mind. Having brothers and sisters, I mean. But we've all got to look out for each other, and now is no exception. Come back to us, Ino. I know you're strong enough to get over this yourself. It'll be faster and easier and less painful if you don't do it alone. You're not being punished. You haven't done anything wrong. We've said it before and we'll say it again, it is not your fault. It's no one's fault, but the men who took it upon themselves to hurt other people. To hurt and kill your father and his teammates. You still being here isn't a punishment. It's a mark of survival, Ino. You're still here, fighting for what you believed in. Protecting your friends. When you went out with us that night, you weren't thinking of sins and good deeds. You weren't thinking of beauty and ugliness, whether it was on the inside or outside. You were simply doing your duty. Responding to a call of help from a fellow team from Konoha. Ino felt the tears come back, but they no longer stung. And even if you hate yourself now, it's not going to matter to the rest of us. The reason why you were so popular wasn't just because of looks. Your personality, so outgoing, confident, and thoughtful. You knew exactly what people liked and wanted to see just from looking at them. People liked you for you, and that won't change just because of a scar. You're as beautiful as you make yourself, Ino, and that will never go away as long as your strength remains. Your father was a wonderful man, and it's okay to feel sad. We've killed and hurt, and it's okay to feel guilty. You, God, shut up, Naruto, Ino whispered, crying. Stop being such a motivational little brat. You're driving me insane with your amazing speeches and magical therapy, and Naruto gave her a hug. God, she needed that. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry for holding myself up and snapping at everyone who was trying to help me. Thank you? Thank you for not giving up on me, she whispered. No. It's okay. We're all here for you, Shikamaru said. Sometimes, life sucks, and when it does it's totally fine to tell life exactly what you think of it. Ino giggled and wiped her nose. Seriously though? Now I feel stupid. For reacting so, man, I was like a train wreck, wasn't I? You did keep me up at night, Shikamaru admitted. I can decode complicated seals, but I was so worried about you, I didn't know what to do. Ino grinned. Finally, I've managed to stump the great Shikamaru. With tears and scars. Thank God we have Naruto, right? Naruto grinned. You've stumped me before, Shikamaru reminded her. Remember that time when we were really little, and you tried to take me shopping, and I had no idea what was going on? Oh yeah? That. Ino snorted. I kept asking you about different colors of dresses and makeup, and you kept ignoring me because you wanted to read your book. I only did that because I didn't have a clue what to say but didn't want to look dumb. I eventually found out you were dumb in that area anyway. Still am, Shikamaru shrugged. Ino let a tiny smile crawl onto her face. It's okay though. We all know Sensei is the most fashionably stunted member of our team. I resent that, Kakashi-sensei, who had been about as vocal as a lawn ornament during the whole affair, suddenly protested. And besides, I have gotten nothing but good reviews about my kimono collection. Shikamaru blanched. Can we please not talk about that? Ino laughed quietly. I couldn't stand it, she admitted. My father dying, that was bad enough. But what made it worse was the whispers, people treating me like a piece of glass. It only made me feel even more useless and horrible, and it was a vicious cycle. Excuse me, she heard her mother in the hallway. I am going to have to ask you to please step this way. These are Ino's quarters, not yours. An unfamiliar man replied, the very fact that you are unwilling to let me pay my respects to her face proves my point exactly. She needs time to rest and heal. That, see, Ino whispered. They said those things? Shikamaru hissed, disgusted. Never that directly before. Ino hastily wiped at her eyes as she tried to make herself look presentable as the pieces connected in her brain. But my family, We're a small and close-knit clan. They can't. What are you talking about? Her mother snapped. The man responded, she is barely a 14-year-old girl, a genin besides. It would be cruel to add on the stress of running a clan when her father died in the same battle she fought in not a week ago. This is bad, isn't it? Naruto interrupted. I don't know jack shit about this stuff, but from the look on Shikamaru's face, there is no way he's trying to be sympathetic, Shikamaru muttered. This is a classic way to make Ino lose face, taking advantage of her mourning period, age, and rank to prove that she is too naive, young, and weak to be an effective leader for the clan. Even if her family members are loyal, he can still subvert her authority in front of the other clan heads. You can bet a guy like Hayashi Hyuga wouldn't care who's who minus. Among ourselves, we as adults are capable enough to take care of things in her stead until she comes of age. There, exactly, Shikamaru finished. But who minus? Ino wondered aloud. I don't recognize that voice. I've never heard it before. No one I know would do that to my father or me minus. Ah, Ino. A young red-headed man strode into her room without knocking. I don't believe you remember me. The last time we met, you were a baby. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am your cousin Fuyamanaka, and, as you are currently childless, your legal heir. Chapter 59. The Pieces Come Together. The Yamanaka clan compound. As they stood there and stared at Fuyamanaka, the whole situation dropped on Naruto the same way Konoha men aged, slowly, and then all at once. Even without Ino's mental connection to prompt him, Naruto could plainly read the atmosphere from the fuck expression on Shikamaru's face alone. They had to stall. Now, luckily, a childhood of pranks and avoiding teachers had honed those skills frighteningly well for him. Naruto jumped to his feet, and with emotion so exaggerated it was obviously fake, yelled, "Intruder! Intruder alert! Intruder alert!" Whatever Fu had been expecting, this was obviously not it. Naruto ducked his head to hide his smirk and clumsily charged at his kneecaps in a half-hearted tackle, all the while screaming and yelling like a monster from the worst kind of B-rated horror movie. Fu casually sidestepped, and Naruto went skidding across the smooth hardwood floors into the hallway wall, sending a hopefully not too priceless vase crashing to the ground. It shattered upon impact, sending clay shards flying everywhere. Mostly into Fu's face. All by accident, of course. Die, filthy Iwa Nin. Fu wiped at the bleeding scratches on his face. Excuse me, but what part of Ino's cousin did you not understand? What he said might have been true, they did look something alike. But since Naruto had never met him before, he could always claim later that he thought the man was a lying thief and was only doing his job. Given how much of an idiot everyone and their grandmother knew he was, that was a very plausible scenario. Never seen you around here before. I was in ANBU since I was small, so I never got to see home very often. I've only recently returned to pay my respects to Inoichi Yamanaka. He was a good man, and a good uncle to me. I'm sorry it couldn't have been under happier terms. Like you expect me to believe that? That's exactly what an evil Iwa Nin in disguise would say to trick us all. With all due respect, Fu sniffed, sounding like he wanted nothing more than to grind Naruto into the ground and teach him his place. Please control yourself. You are causing a scene. His attitude reminded Naruto a little bit of Sasuke or Neji from their academy days, though much more sociable and much less rude. As in, Sasuke or Neji would have insulted him before beating him up. Fu seemed to have more self-control than that. Obviously, he still looked down upon Naruto, but as an older ninja with plenty of experience under his belt, he didn't need to prove his worth by defeating some kid way beneath his level. At the very least, he was trying his best to be polite. From any outsider's point of view, Naruto was the one being rude to a guest, and Fu was treating him with way more respect than he deserved. Good. Being underestimated was always useful. Naruto giggled internally. Oh, please. Do you know who you're dealing with? I am Naruto Uzumaki, scourge of academy teachers everywhere, student of Kakashi Hatake, the desk shunen's worst nightmare. I could keep you stuck in this exact hallway for months, and my clones won't even starve. No way. You're just trying to trick me into surrendering. A good ninja never surrenders. Not true. If he hadn't learned when to fight to the death, and when to hide the evidence and book it, he'd have never survived the academy. Live free or die. Naruto charged back at Fu with as much arm-waving and rug-throwing as possible. Literally, Naruto deliberately tripped into Ino's pile of bedding so that when he got up, he could upend every single blanket into the air in the most hilariously incompetent escape ever. Some landed on Fu's face. He smacked them to the floor. Fu wrinkled his nose. You have made a mess of Ino's room. I hope you will clean up after yourself. Please cease this nonsense immediately. Ino, I understand your bond with your teammates, but propriety dictates that someone from outside the clan must. Ino? Ino was gone, as was Shikamaru. Slipped out of the room when Fu had been distracted a big fluffy comforter to the face. By now, all of the Yamanaka, Nara, and quite possibly Akimichi would know what was going on, and work to crowdsource a solution, or at least a plan for more stalling. As they spoke, Naruto waited patiently for Fu to process this, watching the annoyance on Fu's face quickly morph into the absolutely most delicious look of suffering was quite possibly the most entertaining thing Naruto had ever seen in his life. The Hokage Tower, meanwhile, the cogs were turning in Kakashi's head, never a good sign. Of all the evil ideas he'd ever had in his life, he prayed this one would be the best of them all. He owed Ino this much. He had been useless in helping her heal, but he could do his best to take care of everything else while she took care of herself. It occurred to him that the ferocity with which he loved his students had grown to alarming levels. Kakashi was slightly terrified at the thought of this. That one day they'd finally smash all his barriers to bits. They'd already slipped through his first few lines of defense. He still had a couple left. He hoped they wouldn't make it that far. It wouldn't be pretty if they did. He cared about them too much to let them see something as horrible as that. But that was a worry for another day. The here and now were all he had, all he lived to exist for. They might have been dealt a shitty hand, but they could still make the best of what they had. Kakashi was no stranger to the mountain of injustices, both petty and significant, that had accumulated over his lifetime. If there was ever a time he could not win, he would do everything in his power to make sure his enemies lost, too. The art of being an immature little brat was nothing new. Kakashi was simply one of the special few who had never grown out of it by his 5th birthday. Why would he? To be a sore loser was his God-given decree. To allow his worst petty childish demands run to excess was a universal human right. Derailing so-called perfect plans, snatching the satisfaction of victory out of their grasp, yanking them down to your level of failure. Sometimes, spite could sting even worse than the coldest revenge. Like that time you chucked the bells into an explosion right before we got you so we couldn't have them? Ino asked. Kakashi grinned. Yes, like that. So what do we do now? Now? Kakashi closed his eyes. Pretend you're stupider than you actually are. Act like you have no idea what's going on. Be a normal, shallow-minded, childish little girl. And never forget where your powers truly lie. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an appointment to actually be on time for. Kakashi? What the hell are you doing here? Mainly because I never scheduled it. You've got a very nice office, Hokage-sama. Kakashi grinned, gleefully observing just how perfectly everything was arranged. It would be a shame if something were to happen to it. The Yamanaka clan compound. Okay. Stall for time. Pretend to be a stupid little girl. Ino could do that. Being a natural blonde also helped. Let them underestimate you. Her sensei's advice. Once upon a time, she'd thought him to be so silly. They had never seemed more important than now. Let them underestimate you, but never let yourself underestimate them. She was a powerful shinobi in her own right, one of the youngest people to have ever ascended to the title of a clan head in Konoha's history, and she was not going to let anyone dictate her life and ruin her family, like she was some weak, spoiled, useless little princess. He thought he could play her, huh? Well, she had something to say to that, she, and the entirety of the Yamanaka clan. Which, to be fair, wasn't that huge, but they made up for it by being as loud as 10 normal people each. Once they all acknowledged her order to gather in the main meeting room, she returned to the hallway where Naruto had accosted Fu. The sharp smell of blood assaulted her nose, and for a second Ino's heart skipped one very terrifying beat. Luckily, it turned out that the blood was Fu's, not Naruto's. Naruto was not hurt. Simply very clearly female. And also very clearly naked. Given the way her cousin was reacting to Naruto's highly graphic transformation jutsu, it was evident that while he'd been very clearly emotionally castrated, his basic instinct to ensure the survival of the human species was still very well alive. Being trained to resist seduction was in any skilled ninja's repertoire. But, well, 20 years of repression didn't do anyone any favors. Naruto-kun, she called, pitching her voice higher. Please calm down. He really is my cousin. I think. Ah ha ha. My bad. So sorry for not believing you, Ino's cousin. Naruto bowed facetiously, and the remnants of his harem jutsu disappeared in puffs of pink smoke. It's just that I've been tricked before, since I'm not a very good ninja, so I wanted to make sure. Fu raised his eyebrow, as if asking, "You honestly expect me to believe that? Anyway, I wanted to introduce you to the rest of my family. In its entirety. I have already, in front of everybody, come on. People might ask questions if they see you walking around like this. You might get attacked again, like Naruto did, because people don't know who you are. It would be such a shame for us to treat such an upstanding member of ANBU so poorly, after all the sacrifices you've made away from your home. I have so many things planned for your welcome, including hours of bureaucratic hell." But Ino wasn't going to tell him that. He'd find out firsthand soon enough. Not letting him answer, Ino pulled Fu away by the arm. Bemused, he followed, his silence no doubt signaling how furiously he was trying to work out what they were up to. If he really enjoys thinking so much, I'll accommodate him, Ino thought, and proceeded to take him the long way around to the central meeting room. About 4 or 5 people were already there, and more were trickling in. Ino made sure that they all took absolutely forever in settling down. As in the case with any large family party, 5 in the afternoon usually meant the last people wouldn't be showing up until at least 6:30, if they were lucky. This didn't stop Fu, who immediately announced himself and his poorly veiled intentions. Or tried to. "Hello, everyone. I am, excuse me, someone, more specifically, one of Naruto's clones, disguised to look like a generic Yamanaka clan member," piped up from the back. "I suggest the absence of a quorum," Fu's eye twitched. "There is no such thing. And even if there were, this is an informal gathering. We are not voting on policy minus." He has a point, though. "We can't proceed until everyone is here, otherwise it ruins the point of a clan-wide gathering." Ino bat her eyelashes innocently. "Besides, don't you want the entire clan to know you?" "Dear Rikudo, fine. Now if you'll excuse me, hold on, why are there Nara and Akimichi here?" Fu interrupted, frowning. "This is a Yamanaka clan affair." "Silly Fu." Ino flicked his nose. "Our families have been allies for generations, or have you forgotten? They come over to visit or socialize all the time. What if they see you and don't recognize you, and mistake you for a party crasher? Then they might put pepper powder in your gloves right before you go to the bathroom, and that would be really bad." Fu blinked a few times, and then pinched the bridge of his nose. "Is this what it's all about? Rest assured, Ino, I am only here to ensure the stability of the clan until you marry and have children of your own. I have no desire to take your birthright from you. I was merely doing my duty, as a clan member of proper rank. It is my responsibility, as your elder, to offer you my assistance in executing your duties as clan head." "Well, of course not." A complete unknown waltzing in and snatching the clan headship away from Inoichi Yamanaka's only child was just asking for mutiny, a plan doomed to fail from the start. "No, he was here for something else." "Assistance, my ass? I appreciate your loyalty and kindness, cousin. I'd never accuse you of such a thing." Ino twirled her hair around her fingers, all the while keeping a placid, brainless smile on her face. Being blonde helped. Did he know she was messing with him? Probably. She was Kakashi-sensei's student, after all. Her reputation had been kickstarted by mere association, and the insane amount of trouble their team kept getting into, and somehow surviving, only inflated that. The Nara clan compound. Deep breaths. "Calm down. Ino was doing well, last I checked. I had faith that she was strong and wily enough to make it through the drama." As I rushed home, Ino sent me intermittent updates about the proceedings over her telepathic link. I'll admit, they confused me. Oh, I knew exactly what was going on a surface level. Ino was using every trick in the book, and then some, to make Fu's life more difficult. The full body roll call, the accidental "oops, I skipped someone, better start over to make sure I have everyone, wait, I am missing someone, I need to start over again, wait, I forgot to count myself, so let's start over one more time." It spoke volumes of Fu's patience, that he managed to sit through 4 different iterations of the protocol challenge routine, in which the person assigned to hold the clan rulebook happened to be the oldest, most nearsighted, slowest reader in the world. I knew everything we were doing from our end. What I didn't get was Fu's purpose in all of this. He was a trained soldier, not a politician. His social skills, while not abhorrent, were lacking. He was dangerous, because he had the potential to cause quite a bit of damage, but it was unlikely that he would be able to hold on to whatever meager gains he made in the long term. Having Fu usurp the Yamanaka clan headship was simply too obvious and failure-prone. Meaning, this likely doesn't have anything to do with the clan at all. It's all a smokescreen to disguise his real intentions. He was bait. That was it. He was bait. An obvious connection to Danzo and an easy source of information just sitting there, dumped right into the lap of a clan of mind readers. Too effing easy. Whatever we stood to gain from inside his head was likely wrong, or, worse, a mixture of correct and incorrect information, and no way to tell which was which. In short, the only reason he could possibly be here for was to cause instability. Danzo stood nothing to gain, but the Yamanaka clan stood something to lose if they let him out of their sight. I thought harder. The Yamanaka clan was a small one. While Ino had a decent amount of cousins, few of them were solidly Jonin level. Ino's father had been one of those few before his death. At the moment, the only other shinobi in her family capable of teaching Ino the rest of her clan's techniques was Santa Yamanaka. I had no idea of his capabilities, but seeing as he survived Danzo for so long, I would put him at a similar level. Then there was the matter of the empty post in ANBU interrogation. Root or not, Konoha needed a mind reader in their ranks. Ino could not take over her father's position until she completed her Yamanaka clan training. In other words, as long as Fu was there, the clans would have to expend their time, energy, and resources simply dealing with him. So Santa Yamanaka would have to take over both the ANBU post and Ino's training, like Inoichi Yamanaka had done before, while relying on the rest of us to keep an eye on Fu for him. However, as Santa Yamanaka was nowhere near as good as Inoichi, making him do both at once would cause his performance to suffer. The Yamanaka clan jutsu simply did not work as well with shadow clones. The second option was to have Santa train Ino only, and hope that ANBU could keep an eye on Fu. This was unacceptable, even under the erroneous assumption that every single ANBU was loyal to the Hokage and not Danzo. It was simply dangerous to let Fu have Inoichi's level of access permissions, and while Ino could step up as clan head to prevent Fu from getting the post, she couldn't do the same for an ANBU position that required knowledge and mastery of all her clan techniques. And she definitely couldn't lie about it either. That would fall apart way too quickly to be even worthy of consideration. The third option was to have Santa take over the ANBU post only. Ino would have to figure out how to perform her clan techniques by herself, then, because there was no way in hell we were going to let Fu into Ino's brain. The Yamanaka had secret scrolls and books on this, just as my clan and every other clan did, to ensure that techniques wouldn't disappear in the event of a disaster. It would be harder without help, but Ino was smart enough to self-study. She could do it, she could. With enough training dummies, and Naruto's clones, even, it could work. Have Santa do most of his work in ANBU, help her when he had spare time, and trust that she could do the rest herself. It would take the load off the man's back, without leaving anything behind for Fu to take. It was the best solution I could come up with. Still, no matter what, simply with Fu's presence, the Yamanaka clan would be splitting their resources, while Danzo himself was giving up no information, and given the fact that Fu was here in the first place made him disposable, very little manpower. I suppose the fact that we were distracted and pinned down in an inconvenient position at all counted as Danzo's win. Then, what is he distracting us for? A distraction by itself meant little. The important question was what he was trying to do in the meantime. I came to a stop before my father's office door, and slammed my fist against it. Shikaku had barely unlocked the door before Shikamaru burst into his room, looking more than a little out of breath. We need to talk. In private. It didn't take Shikaku much to figure it out. He stepped aside to allow his son into the room, letting the door slide shut behind him. With a practiced motion, Shikaku's fingers tapped their way around the lock, and the ink on the seals shifted again, trapping them in a box of secrecy. The walls had ears, true, but inside this place, they were the ears in the walls. I take it the transition of power in the Yamanaka clan is not going as smoothly as we hoped. No doubt he, Chusa, and Kakashi were the first adults outside of her clan Ino would turn to. You think? The reasoning behind it all was simple. It wasn't as if they absolutely needed some half-trained, barely teenage girl in the special forces, no matter how smart or skilled she was, when they could easily get someone older. It was about power. It was about showing the clans that Danzo could do what he liked, to drive a wedge into whatever they were planning. If Fu took control of Ino's training, he could control her, by the mere nature of the Yamanaka clan techniques. If he controlled Ino, he controlled the Yamanaka clan. If he controlled the Yamanaka clan, he could tie the hands of the Nara and Akimichi, as well as the hands of the two Jinchuriki under Konoha's name. All of that was, of course, a big if. I doubt Fu Yamanaka will ever be accepted as a clan head, or even regent, Shikaku hurried to reassure him. He is a virtual unknown as a person. He has very little political leverage outside of his genetic position in the line of succession. I know that. I don't care how long he's been in ANBU. Even without us or Kakashi-sensei to help her, she could still wipe the floor with him, and the rest of the Yamanaka would sit and eat popcorn as they watched. This isn't about Fu. He's just a distraction, a pawn for someone else, and you know damn well who. We promised to tell each other things, yes? What is he doing? Why is he here? What is he distracting us for? It doesn't help us, knowing that he is hiding something when we need to know what he's hiding. Shikaka pinched the bridge of his nose. With Inoichi out of commission, our information is fuzzier, but I am fairly certain that he is taking this transition of power as an opportunity to sneak in and remove whatever traces are left of Konoha's involvement in the Uchiha massacre, along with any other pies he's had his fingers in over the years. Not that he hasn't always been doing that, but previously he was limited to a little at a time, to stay out of notice. Inoichi's death gave him a major opening that he would be foolish not to exploit. Then it's a matter of getting our hands on all the dirty details we can find out before Danzo manages to destroy them all. I've been collecting dirt on him for years. Then again, he's spent the same amount of time covering his tracks. There's only one person who might still know, and that's the Hokage. It was unspoken between the two of them that they could never let the Sandaime in on any of this. If he didn't already know, then asking would be useless. And if he did know, then it meant that he was keeping those secrets for a reason, and they risked being silenced alongside them. But we don't have to be the ones to ask, Shikamaru suddenly interjected. Shikaku raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? Look! The Hokage's been itching for a successor for quite some time now, right? Currently, the contenders are Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Kakashi-sensei, but none of them are willing at all. And I mean, I trust Jiraiya and Tsunade up until a certain point, but worst comes to worst, they might side with their old teacher over the clans, whom they have no real connection to. Kakashi-sensei, on the other hand, doesn't give two flying shits about anything except us. He's obsessed with our safety. He'd do it in a heartbeat. You think that if you can convince him to agree to become the Godame Hokage, he'll be in a good position to find out just what the Hokage knows, and just how involved Central Command was with Root, Shikaku summarized. Exactly. I thought you said he'd hate it. He can pretend. I can repay him by doing the rest of the work behind the scenes. He'll just have to sit behind a desk, wear the hat, pretend he cares, and double-cross all the foreign dignitaries that stop by. Which he already does anyway. Shikamaru clenched his fists. Dad, please. We need to get Kakashi-sensei on this. He is perhaps the only person here in a position to properly help us when it comes to the Hokage. Shikaku was silent for a while as he mulled this over. Of all the powers that were fracturing their village right now, which one of them wasn't dreaming of getting Kakashi Hatake on their side? And yet, I describe men as having plans and goals, and I describe plans and goals as logical or insane. I like to think of myself as having logical goals and logical plans. Danzo has insane goals and logical plans. Gaara, before we rehabilitated him, had insane goals and insane plans. And I take it Kakashi-sensei's insane plans ultimately walk towards a logical goal. Don't let his day-to-day behavior fool you. He knows exactly what the hell he's doing, and he plays the long game just as well as the rest of us. Shikamaru smiled. If that's the case, then I would rather have him on our side, don't you think? Chapter 60. Bureaucratic Nightmares. The Nara clan compound. Guilt gnawed at my stomach. I needed to tell Kakashi-sensei about my plan, but I wasn't sure how to broach the topic. If he refused, then of course I wouldn't force him, not that I could. The trouble was, I knew that he'd never say no when it came to this. In this way, I held the power. The choice lay not in his response, but whether or not I asked in the first place. The sad reality was we were all born playing the game, a game that wasn't even a game, just one massive steeplechase that inevitably ended in death, where the goal wasn't to win the race, but to be the last one to finish, except that was harder than it looked because the entire track was a giant treadmill that moved you forward whether you liked it or not, and all you could do was continually shove people in front of you to delay that moment when you finally fell off. Most people went on with their everyday lives, being unwitting pawns in everything they did, blissfully oblivious to the manipulations of men more powerful than they were, attributing their misfortunes to uncontrollable, mysterious powers like fate or bad luck or the gods, never knowing that the true monsters were flesh and blood just like them. What are we going to do about Sasuke? I asked instead. We can't simply not tell him, but if we do tell him, it will certainly destroy him. At this point, it is still unproven why such actions were taken regarding the corpses, my father said, though it suggests that the clan was massacred for a more sinister reason than simply an overpowered, arrogant child prodigy losing his mind. Even if that were the only reason why, however, it would still mean someone had taken advantage of this moment for personal gain. I thought about this. Perhaps it is for the best that we never learn why Itachi Uchiha murdered his family. If we have plausible deniability over this knowledge, we can spin it to focus solely on the corpse disposal, which, by itself, is an egregious breach of personal property rights. But we have to prove that this was linked with Root. If we can just push all the responsibility on some fringe group, we might be able to spare the rest of Konoha from blame. The rest of Konoha. How I envied them. Envied the people who could willfully remain ignorant of the total lack of control they had over their own lives and somehow accept it. Maybe those people were wiser than I was. Maybe those people, the faceless men and women who could live in quiet humility for the rest of their lives, those people who could accept the futility of their lives and be okay with it, as if that were the wisest of them all. But that was not the case for me. I knew too much, and now that I knew, I could not stop or rest. It was like every time I tried to read an extremely interesting book, once I saw even a tiny glimpse, I had to know more, keep knowing, keep reading, until I reached the end. It was the poison of knowledge. I always wanted more. I never had enough. Even deadlier than a greed for gold, because while it was possible for a man to be the richest person in the world, it was impossible for a man to be the smartest person in the world. If a wealthy man met a poor beggar, and saw that the beggar had a single coin, well, that was one coin he didn't have, but what did it matter? A coin was a coin, and the wealthy man still had more than the beggar. But if a fool possessed just one bit of information that a smart man did not have, one tiny skill he could never understand, then the fool was more intelligent than the smart man, at least in that regard. A gross amassing of knowledge was different from a gross amassing of wealth, for every bit of information in the world was different. All the infinite wisdom in the world could not make a man immune to the wiles of others. A single pickpocket had thrown the plans of the world's greatest thinkers into disarray, had ripped their schemes to shreds. Foolish as that street rat had been, he had possessed the one skill that none of those men had expected, and then, there went the lives of hundreds of men. Again, the curse of being too aware reared its ugly head. Now that they had given me a little bit of the truth, they could not expect me to docilely remain in this half-state of knowing and yet not. But even worse than the curse of knowing and yet not, was the curse of knowing and being completely unable to do anything about it. Perhaps. I do hope you will be able to maintain your control over the technique I taught you. Danzo is a slippery man. As in, capable of resetting reality. Slippery. Capable of resetting. What? I sought to remedy that problem. They said knowledge is power. That was not quite true. Knowledge was not power. Knowledge only made men crave it. Orochimaru craved jutsu, and so did I, to a certain extent, because a little extra strength couldn't hurt in our world. But what was the world's greatest warrior against the people commanding him? Being the strongest did not mean everything. Tsukumo Hatake was proof enough of that. I should like to say I was not so selfish or cruel. Dominating other people was not my ultimate goal. I only wished to command myself. I only wished to protect those dear to me, to prevent those who wished them harm from controlling them. But that, too, was a paradox. The world was too complex for any one man to be the sole master of his fate, a technique I saw him use last time we fought. The mere existence of Izanagi and Izanami were but rumors, even when the Uchiha clan was still intact. You understand, then, why the missing corpses of the Uchiha clan are so important. Regular attacks cannot touch him while he is in that state. I had a sickening vision of lying dead on a cold metal exam table, while a masked figure rooted around in my skull with a scalpel. Fingers jamming themselves into my sockets and scooping out my eyes with soft squelching noises. My father, selling his soul to the shadows for a peek past the veil of reality into which Danzo Shimura had slipped. And the Akatsuki? My father toyed with his inkstone. Thus far, our information on their identities and abilities are solely reliant on Jiraiya's information as well as whatever we got off the mission report from your team and Team 10. I opened my mouth and then closed it again. How was I supposed to explain anything? How was I supposed to explain that the technique he specifically warned me against using had happened without my conscious control, and yet I had to do it? Trust did not come naturally to me, to any of us. But I had to trust my family, and my team, because without trust, I'd just be someone like Orochimaru, alone and adrift in the world until someone strong enough to kill me finally caught up with me. And it was then that I realized, I'd rather die than live that way. Drawing from my experiences in fighting the member of the Akatsuki known as Black Zetsu, I have reason to logically conclude that your technique, while independently created, is not entirely original. My father's pen snapped in his hand. I watched as his blood dribbled down onto the polished wood of his desk, the ink from the pen mixing and swirling black against the bright red like it was the cage mane choking to death. His fingers jerked in an aborted movement towards the tissue box, as if he'd decided that watching the patterns form was a more advantageous course of action than getting his finger wrapped and cleaning up the mess. I say this because I was thinking the same thing in that time, and thus was just as paralyzed in fascination. Well then, he whispered, all the more reason for you to master it. The Yamanaka clan compound, like I said before, and have been saying, Fu yelled over the din, I am only here to assist Ino in her new position. She is young and inexperienced, and cannot possibly take on such a monumental task all by herself. Ino should have been offended at his smug, condescending tone, except, and this was the saddest thing of all, he wasn't being smug and condescending. It was almost as if he was reciting lines from a book. He probably was. Ah, that's so sweet of you, Ino said. I don't think you understand how difficult the task of being clan head is, Ino-chan. A clan head has many responsibilities. Even more so, as head of the Yamanaka. You realize, with your father's passing, there is a vacancy in ANBU intelligence, one that must be filled by a skilled mind reader. A genin cannot run a clan. Ino pointed to the law book he had plunked in front of her. So what does being my regent, proxy, what's this word mean? Law is stupid. I hate big words. They're dumb, she whined, making pouty lips and batting her eyelashes. EW. He's your cousin, said one of her cousins. Yeah, but he's my first cousin minus. Fu was still completely lost and taking everything literally, interjected, actually, I'm your second cousin. You have no first cousins, so you have your cousins, and then you have your first cousins, and then you have your second cousins. Excuse me, we were talking about proxies? Ino began to fake cry. Stop using that big word. I don't like big words. Being your proxy only means that I will be signing agreements in your name, and take over your position as an ANBU interrogation consultant until you are ready. What's consultant mean? It means we provide our assistance and advice. The Yamanaka clan has many secret techniques that other clanless shinobi within ANBU interrogation cannot perform. What's interrogation mean? It means extracting information from an enemy. What's extracting mean? It means, Ino's mother pinched the bridge of her nose. Okay, that's enough, Ino. So why can't I nominate Santa over there? Ino asked, twirling one of her bangs. Because I am more closely related to you than he is. But why does being more closely related make it have to be you? Because that's the rules. Why is that the rule? Fu evidently hadn't learned from his previous exchange with Naruto. Because he was still looking at them like they were all idiots. To keep usurpers and civil wars from fracturing the clan in the case of an inheritance dispute. Wait, Ino asked, isn't my mother my closest relative? Why can't she be my regent? Because it is determined by relation to the previous clan head, not the current one, and your mother is not in the line of succession at all because she is not related to your father. Fu explained for what must have been the sixth time. Ino paused to consider this. And then she opened her mouth and asked, what's related mean? It was a testament to Fu's level of skill and training that he did not explode on the spot. Luckily for Fu, one of her other relatives took pity at that point and clarified, family member, Ino-chan. It means family member. But isn't my mother family member to my father then? Not genetically. Genetically means by blood. Not by blood. Your mother is not related to your father genetically. She married into the clan. She was not a member of the Yamanaka clan originally. Therefore, she cannot be a regent. Fu's knuckles were white against the dark cloth of his trousers. Ino. I am clearly the next best choice for you. Just sign that paper, and then we can be done. Tell him he's wrong, Kakashi-sensei whispered over their mind link. Ino pulled out a pocket mirror and began putting on makeup. You're wrong. What? Oh, you're gonna love this, Kakashi-sensei said. Even the Hokage couldn't argue against it. See, the branch of ANBU he is from is Root. Root was supposed to have been disbanded a long time ago, and therefore does not exist in official records. And he's been in there his whole life. Ino blinked. Holy, so this means, exactly, fuck yeah. This was going to be fun. Fu, having no idea what he was about to be in for, simply frowned in frustration at their refusal to cooperate. It is a general rule to all clans across Konoha, not just ours, to prevent clan heads who are too young for full training to have to shoulder the burden themselves. In the case of the Yamanaka clan, a clan head must, in addition to the regular duties, be available to offer their skills at any moment to ANBU intelligence, as part of our contract with Konoha. As such, in order to be fully realized as clan head, you must have already completed your basic ANBU training and the full suite of our clan's secret techniques. You have done neither. I am the most qualified to assist you in rectifying that. Oh, I understand the rules. When I said you were wrong, I meant the part about you being the most qualified, Ino said sweetly. After all, you're not a ninja. Excuse me? I most certainly am a. See? The fact that you're saying you're a ninja out loud makes you not a ninja. He could be trying to use reverse psychology, Naruto said. He'd snuck into the room a long time ago, but blended in easily among the sea of blonde. Maybe he expects people to think that a true ninja will always lie about not being a ninja, and so he says he is a ninja because people will then assume he isn't, thus making the opposite of the inverse of the converse of the contrapositive true. Oh. Ino nodded. I see what you mean. But he never didn't say he wasn't not a fake ninja, at least not in this non-context, notwithstanding. Therefore the contrapositive of the converse of the inverse of the opposite must not necessarily be false, and the answer is E, all of the above, for blanched. What? Ino, have some mercy on his poor soul, her mother sighed, stifling a grin. Oh, all right, Ino huffed. The point still stands, F. You're not qualified to be my proxy for anything clan head or ANB related. And why not? Ino gave him her best wolf smirk, and let the bomb drop. Hallelujah, Kakashi-sensei. We ran a background check on you, cousin dearest. Imagine our surprise when we realized your name was missing from the past year's academy roster. And the Chunin, Jonin, and Tokubetsu Jonin registers. Why, you're not even in the official ANBU files. For the second time that day, Fu's face completely imploded. That was a dick move, Naruto told Kakashi-sensei, substantially impressed. Don't blame me, blame the bureaucrats, Kakashi-sensei grinned. According to them, he doesn't even exist, Ino wholeheartedly agreed. Don't worry, Fukuen. Out of my love for you, I will do my best as the head of this clan to make the proper arrangements for you to finish your education. Of course, if you are denied from the academy because you are too old, who am I to break Konoha's laws, the Hokage's office, and Hokage-sama? For the entire time period that Fu Yamanaka is mysteriously unable to be promoted to the proper rank he needs to gain administrative control over the clan, I promise to do all of my mission reports in pen, Hiruzen snorted. Seems like a lot of trouble for such a small reward. Legible pen, Kakashi stressed. They'll look like the reports I wrote when I was a Chunin. Just close your eyes and imagine it. Handwriting so neat and uniform, it looks like it was typed, as far as the eye can see, and all you have to do is, after months of denying him entry into the academy on account of his age, keep coincidentally putting him on a squad of idiots always guaranteed to fail a Jonin sensei's test. Hiruzen could feel his resolve slipping. Sweat dripped from his brow. But I would still have to make arrangements with the academy teachers and the leaders of the Genin Corps to prevent him from passing. I am not sure I want to be known as a purposeful saboteur of a capable shinobi over private interests, just for some neater paperwork that should have been neat to begin with. It would get suspicious after many 6-month cycles. If you so insist, Kakashi said, deliberately staring at his forehead, the fucker. I, of course, hold no responsibility if tomorrow you wake up and everything in this room has been rotated slightly to the left. Or if the cap on your favorite inkwell suddenly no longer fits, so it all dries up. Who knows? Some devious soul might even sneak in here and put a teeny tiny X and permanent marker on a single random page in your private special edition Ica collection, and not tell you which one. And it's on your conscience, knowing you could have prevented this. But sure. I'll leave you to your own devices. The Sandaime glared at Kakashi. I can delay his promotion for, at best, 4 cycles. At half a year for each cycle, that's 2 years. By then Ino will be older than 16, and the block you have on her Chunin promotion will expire. Ah, yes. The promotion. You know, it would be such a great tragedy if all of Team 7's promotion files suddenly went missing. Without those papers, we can't mark down their rank advancements at all, said Kakashi, blatantly rotating his perfectly positioned ashtray slightly to the left as if he wouldn't notice. It is, the Sandaime said, rotating it back, especially since giving Ino a rank advancement might solidify her position. Put that back, you overgrown child, minus as a clan head better than anything. The Nara and Akimichi might treat her well, there is only so much respect the others will afford a teenage genin, Kakashi scoffed. Hayashi Hyuga isn't that bad. I bullied him into worse things when I was half her age. Did you? I might have been unnecessarily cruel at times. They never did manage to remove that stick from his arse. Hiruzen tried his hardest to suppress a smile, because this was serious, damn it. She was never as bad as you. Kakashi considered this. You're right, she's worse. How so? Somehow, even with his mouth completely obscured by his mask, Kakashi's grin looked exactly like a shark. If there's one thing the Hyuga care about, it's appearances, and she runs a successful gossip column spanning several countries. Hiruzen coughed. Wait, that trashy rag is hers? That trashy rag that you have surreptitiously hidden in your robes to read during your boring finance meeting later, yes? I don't know what you're talking about, Hiruzen insisted. And stop changing the subject. Ino Yamanaka cannot be a genin forever. You've held on to that damn Chunin promotion scroll for ages. Now is as good of a time as ever to relinquish that promotion block. Can't you see, Kakashi, that your attempts to protect her will be disadvantageous to her in the long run? The Sandaime had Kakashi trapped, he knew. Backed into a corner of logic and common sense. Of course, a cornered shinobi was one that fought back hardest, and it was here that Kakashi decided to use his last resort, not that it would help much. But I don't wanna. You sound like a 5-year-old who doesn't want to go to sleep. That was the point, yes. Usually the 5-year-olds in those stories end up falling asleep 10 minutes later anyway, Kakashi snorted. I didn't, because you were a genin. Worked out pretty nicely, didn't it? Kakashi threw himself into the chair and crossed his arms and legs so tightly Hiruzen wondered if they would ever untie themselves. In other words, the classic body language among 5-year-olds for if you do not give in to my demands I am going to throw the biggest tantrum on earth, and then hold my breath until my face turns blue, and you won't stop me in any other way except by giving in to my demands. The Sandaime normally didn't negotiate with terrorists, but Hiruzen would make exceptions for children, even the overgrown 20 years too late ones. Come on, Kakashi. I know you taught all of your kids the ANBU code words and signs within a month of their academy graduation. By now they've basically gotten all the basic skills down, save for the desensitization training. Ino's an interrogation consultant, not an assassin or hunter-nin, Kakashi insisted. Yes, you've made that clear. To tell the truth, anyone on Team 7 could make an assassin or hunter-nin and do a very good job at it. Kakashi had, however subconsciously, beaten that into them since the very start. Oh good, so we're on the same page then. The only difference between the training he'd given them, and the training ANBU normally gave to its new recruits, was the alarmingly fierce emotional bond between teacher and student. The ANBU drill instructors always maintained a professional distance, to make the work look even meaner and scary than it already was. As Kakashi had been working with his genin, he was constantly giving off an attitude of everything being perfectly fine and normal. Which, by his standards, might have been. The results were odd. Children who were the most effective ninja Hiruzen had seen in a long time, more mature than most but also not yet completely gone, simply with different standards of childhood. In the same situation, Kakashi's kids and the average ANBU might perform similarly, but with the kids taking things less seriously, simply because they were conditioned to think such things were the average experience for most shinobi. It wasn't anything deliberate on Kakashi's part, for he had been, too. Will making her Chunin really change that at all? People of lesser rank still treated me as a child even when I became Jonin, Kakashi pointed out, making obviously subtle sniffling noises. What sorts of important decisions was Inoichi Yamanaka involved in that they might leave her out of now? Hiruzen cursed his traitorous nose, which also began to feel runny. That's what I'm worried about. I don't know. Huh, Kakashi said in a tone that sounded very much like, I do, but I'm not telling. Missions are the least dangerous thing they have to worry about, said the Sandaime. They've survived things that would kill most people. They faced Orochimaru twice and lived. They've won against incredible numerical odds. They've assisted in killing 2 S-ranked criminals and crippled a third. It's not an escalated mission rank that would harm them, but the circumstances leading up to said rank escalation. Yes, I know, Kakashi said, now staring at his ear. Hiruzen's eye twitched. The Sandaime folded his hands across his desk and tried to pretend that all of the annoying little passive-aggressive things Kakashi was doing to screw with his mind weren't working. Because of the situation your team is in thanks to Naruto, I'll make sure to give them special consideration when assigning missions to them, alright? Kakashi gave a non-committal grunt. Okay, will you stop being a complete child about it? No, don't push me, Kakashi, the Sandaime warned. Oh, let me have my fun. Kakashi craned his neck and shifted his left shoulder, where the curse mark still lay, slightly forward. While it lasts, he added, look, I'm not a big fan of promoting barely teenagers to Chunin either, but you cannot deny that this will definitely lend her more legitimacy to her inheritance, the Sandaime cut in. As it did for you. Or must I remind you of how Minato Namikaze also had the power to block your Chunin promotion but didn't for the same reasons we have now? Kakashi stiffened. I have to go. My dog is stuck in a tree. He went up there to hide after he chewed a hole through one of my socks. We live in Konoha. We don't own socks, but Hiruzen was speaking to an empty room.